Okay. So we're just going to talk today about some ways in which we can engage in real-time drawing, because that's something that a lot of people, particularly in the STEM fields, but more broadly, have been asking questions about, and how some ways of doing it. And I'm going to list a few ways, and these are the ways that I've tried it and that I've generally heard most people tend to be doing. One is to use a Zoom whiteboard tool on a computer using the Zoom drawing tools with a mouse or a touchpad. And the way you do that is you go up to the controls when you're sharing. When you choose a screen share, you can click on New Share, and you can get a whiteboard tool. And I'm going to open the whiteboard here. And now everyone has the ability to try drawing. And I'd encourage you to try it. You can draw on the screen by just going to the controls and choose what? Choose the, I think it's under more, enable annotation for others. There we go. I had it turned off because this is something I was using for my class. And I chose to not let them draw on the screen all the time, because some of them were trying to. When you have 280 some students, some of them like to be playful, and that could be a bit distracting. But now I think you should all be able to draw on the screen. And so you can use a mouse and just draw whatever you want. You can change your colors. You can draw, there we go. You can put some text up. And, using a text tool. You could use a stamp tool if you want to just put a check mark next to something. You can put in rectangles and circles and squares, and you can highlight things. You could do a filled box. You can change the colors and so forth. So this is a fun thing. And some people will actually do that as they're waiting for the class to begin. Just put up the whiteboard and let students play with it a little bit. There's some limitations on this. How can you draw on the Zoom whiteboard? You should be able to choose a tool at the top, which is what? Could anyone just either type it in chat or I can't annotate. Yes, choose the annotate tool, and you get a little menu that you can try. Yeah, it's on the, see, it's different on my screen. So yeah, go to the view option bar at the top and choose annotate. And you can do this, by the way, on any screen. You could allow annotations anywhere. So it could be on a slideshow, it could be on a whiteboard. You could put an image up, and you could put a map up. You could do any number of things with this. And it could be really, it's a powerful little tool. And, you could do it for more formal things. For example, when I'm discussing some basic economics, one of the things I would often do is I would just use the line drawing tool. And I would just put in, say, well, let me change the color a little bit so it's a little more contrast. So I might just put in a little graph here, and then put in, the axes. And if I'm just doing simple demand and supply curves, I might want to change the colors with those. But I could just do something like this and then throw in some labels. Here's a demand curve, here's a supply curve. And, you get to the point where you're able to do this pretty quickly while you're talking at the same time. And then you can talk about what happens if the curve, if the curve shifts. And that works pretty easily if you're working with just line drawing. But you can also...
John, I'm sorry. How did you get such straight lines in your graph?
When you go up to the draw tool, there's a line, which makes it a whole lot easier. So just click on the draw, and you have the option of using rectangles, triangles, arrows,
Got you.
And other things, and polygon, quadrilaterals and parallelograms and other things.
No, this makes sense. I was like, how did your hand is pretty stable here.
Well, yeah, but one of the next things I was going to show is I happen to be using a Dell touchscreen laptop, and you can get these like $400 or $500. You could also throw in, just do some screen drawing using your finger or using a stylus. And if you're drawing on the screen with a finger or this, and yes, students could get inappropriate, but you can see their names and then you could have a little chat with them about that. I haven't had much of a problem with that. I had some problems initially in the course with chat where they just went crazy the first few days, and I actually ended up shutting it down for a little bit, for maybe a week or so, and then they were really happy to get it back. I let them use voice chat, but there were some issues with some inappropriate chat. But I told them, I'm reopening the chat, but if there's problems, I'll just shut it down again. And they appreciated the ability to be engaged with the chat, and that helped. So this is a really simple tool where you can use it like a whiteboard or a blackboard. And again, you can type text on it and so forth. And it's a really good way of answering student questions. In economics, we use a lot of graphs. And what I can do is I can do this right on top of slides if I have slides for something. Or students could call up a screen if they had a question about something they read, they could display it and you could draw right on top of that. And so it's a really nice way of doing some really simple, basic graphic commenting. Now, when you draw with the mouse, though, it's a really awkward way of doing it. You can, but it's going to look kind of ugly. You notice if you compare what I did up, let me use a spotlight thing. Up here, I was using my finger. Down here, I was using a mouse. And you notice when I was drawing the same type of curves with my finger, it looks a whole lot smoother. If you have a stylus, it's going to look even nicer. So this is one way of doing it. Any questions on this? Oh, and Todd said, if you hold shift while using a line draw, it stops at preset angles. That's good to know. And yeah, there is a name with the annotations, which makes it easier so that if someone does put something inappropriate, you could actually see who did that. Now, one of the issues I had a problem with one student for a couple of weeks who kept changing his name, sometimes to mine, sometimes to various other people. And whenever I tried tracking him down, he'd disappear. But now we have registration, so it's a little bit easier. Eventually that stopped. I don't know if it was peer pressure, if it was, well, I'm not sure what happened, but there could be some inappropriate things and you should be prepared for that. But that could come up in any type of class activity or discussion. Okay, so I'm going to clear this. If I grab the right mouse, because again, I got two computers going here and two mice, and I'm going to switch to, I'm going to close this particular share and go back to the slides, because I want to talk at least briefly and give you an introduction on some other ways that might be a little bit better. Recording just ended for the last session's video. A graphics tablet gives you a whole lot more control. So if you have a graphics tablet, and you can get them for $40 on up, you could just draw on that and get much more precise drawing with the stylus that comes with the tablet. But another thing that works really well, which is something I use quite a bit in the past, although I've moved away from it now that I have this touchscreen on my laptop. But if you have an iPad that's mirroring the computer screen, it basically converts your Macintosh or your Windows machine into a touchable interface, so that you could use, if you have an Apple Pencil or even a finger or just a stylus, if you have an older iPad, you can just see the same screen that's being displayed on your laptop or desktop, but now it has a touchscreen interface. So you can draw right on the iPad and it will display on the screen. You can, if you're using one of the 2 or maybe 3 most recent interfaces, operating systems for Mac OS, you could use Sidecar. If you have a relatively recent iPad and a relatively recent operating system on your Mac, Sidecar basically lets your iPad serve as a second display, which could either mirror the screen or be used to extend the screen. If you're mirroring the screen, it provides a touchscreen interface, making your Mac serve as a touchscreen computer in the same way that mine was. But you also have, if you're using an Apple Pencil, a really precise drawing tool, which is a nice way of doing it. And so that's one way of doing it. Now, Duet Display will work with Windows machines or will work on will work with earlier versions of the Mac or earlier iPads. It was created by Apple engineers. I think it's like $10 or so, maybe might be more now. I bought it about 4 or 5 years ago, and it works really well in setting up your iPad as a second screen. Um, you could also use an inexpensive document camera. And the way you do that is you just plug it in. You can get those for like $30 on up. You just plug it in as another screen. And when you go to your video, when you choose your video display, I set up, I have an, I picked up one here um, where now, actually, let me see if I can do it differently. Okay, I can go to a second camera. That's actually the easier way of doing it. And now it should go to, no, that is a different camera. That's not the one I wanted though. I've got a number of different cameras here. Sorry about that. One more time. Under advanced, that's not what I wanted either. I'm going to stop that share, go back to my regular ones. I thought I was going back to my regular one. Switch camera. There we go. Okay, here we go. I've switched to my document camera, which is way over here, and it's angled poorly, but I have my I didn't have time to get this set up because we had some things show up this morning. But basically I have a document camera over here. I can write and draw diagrams, do other things with that. And you can either do that by changing your camera and having it as a separate display, or going directly from the screen share and change to another camera. I've got like 4 or 5 different video devices on this, which is why I switched to the wrong camera the first time and I just bumped it. And it's also about 3 feet away because I've got 2 computers and 2 extra monitors here and the dock camera. But the document camera itself, I'm going to switch back to, I'm going to stop this share and switch back to my regular camera. There we go. And I'm going to show the dock camera that I'm using. It's just a little USB camera. I bought it for about $100 and it just works like this. You can adjust the focus by bringing it up or down. And there's a lot of them out there that are relatively inexpensive. And really, if you're used to using a dock camera, it works just like it would if you were using a dock camera in a classroom. And again, there's many of them. There are other things that you can do. You can get a little tripod for your phone and use your smartphone as a document camera and just draw underneath it. I've seen people, and I think this was shared in the Oswego group, the Oswego Facebook group, the Oz Hangout. You could use couple of cans of soup to hold your phone over a piece of paper and just write on it. There's lots of ways that you can do it without spending anything more. But the dock camera was just a really easy way for me to do it. So I'm going to go back now and share the original screen, go back to the slides because there are other ways of doing this. And you can find lots of dock cameras on Amazon. Okay. You could also connect directly to Zoom on a tablet computer. You install Zoom on the tablet computers, and there's versions of Zoom for iPads and for Android devices. And if you're using an iPad or an iPhone with a Mac, you can choose advanced screen sharing. I'm using this on a PC now because the MacBook I have in this office up here is actually running another session. I should have thought about that earlier. But basically, you select advanced screen sharing on your Mac. You select the option for connecting an iPad or an iPhone using AirPlay or a cable, and then the screen of your iOS device becomes a screen share. Or you could use a Zoom app on your tablet, and this is something you'd probably use on an Android device, to log directly into the session and then switch to that for your presentation by muting the laptop mic and then focusing on your other screen and enabling the tablet mic when you share the screen from the tablet. And both modern or recent Android tablets, and for the last 4 years or so, iOS devices, smartphones, and tablets will let you basically do screen recording. And one of the options when you choose screen recording is to share it directly to a Zoom session. And I put a link in here, and I'll share these slides with you actually on the next screen. And detailed information on how to do that is provided by in this link. But what I'm going to do, I thought I had more here. Sorry about that. I'm going to share this link to you with you. And this will let you get a copy of these slides once I get out of the presentation mode. Oh, well, there we go. I'm going to put that in the chat. So there's several ways. I saw a comment in the chat. You can either start the video and change your camera, or you could directly share the screen from from your tablet or your device or your camera as a screen share. And that's actually the better way, because otherwise it shows up in a little box where you'd have to ask students to pin it if you're just changing the camera. If you share the screen of your device, either the webcam or your tablet, then it becomes the main screen share. Just as when you share the screen on your laptop, you could share the screen on your iPad, your Android tablet, or other devices as a screen share. And then you could use any of the presentation tools within there. You could use things like GoodNotes or any of those editing tools. You can draw chemical equations on it and so forth. And if you click on that link I shared, it will give you a copy of the slides that you will have in your own Google Drive account. And then you could click on the links for more detailed instructions. So that's a really quick way of explaining a lot of things. And basically, what I'd encourage you to do is just play with them a bit, see what works best for you, get comfortable with it so that when you get to use it for class, it's just a natural switch. I started trying all of these things in my classes, and because I had the touchscreen, I just found it was easier for me not to connect the document camera and switch, not to connect an iPad and switch. It was just, for me at least, it was so much easier just to draw things right on top of either slides that I already had, or when students shared the screen, if they had a question about something, I could just draw things right on top of it. And I got to the point where I could do that just as quickly as I could do it on a whiteboard or on, if I was in the classroom with them. So any questions? Feel free to open your mics or type things in chat. And one other thing I should note is let students know that they have exactly the same capabilities in breakout rooms. And if they're working on problems together, if they're working on projects, they can share the screen, they can draw on them, they can do all of these things. If you have a class where they're working on some problems and need graphs, they can just go in and put the graphs up if they have images, and then other people can annotate them. They can ask each other questions. They can draw on each other's screens. And Rebecca's going to be doing a session this afternoon on how you can use some virtual whiteboard tools to do some of the same things, and then share those with participants. So
John,
any questions?
I have a question. I just want to confirm. So to get to the whiteboard in Zoom, it's just share screen, and then that's one of the options you're given, right? I guess I've just never noticed it before.
You can do that right now. Try it. We have a couple minutes, so just try it yourself.
And that is, okay. So you all are seeing the whiteboard then that I just put up. Okay, awesome. And that is just standard default with every Zoom session you create.
To enable it. You have to set it up. You have to set it up so that you can share the screen. And if you want your students to do it, and I'd recommend that in general, especially in breakout rooms, it's really powerful. Enable it for participants to share their screens too. But be sure that when you do that, keep the power for yourself to override the display of someone, because you don't want someone, if you do have Zoom bombing, one of the things they used to do is they'd hop into a session, they'd take over a screen and then display pornography or something. And you don't generally want that to happen. Or if it does, you want to be able to take over the screen and eject them really quickly. That's not, if you have passwords enabled and you're not sharing it publicly, that's not going to happen. We did have that happen with some way back before that became a really popular thing. About 2 or 3 years ago, we actually had it during some of our winter breakout sessions where we had a guest speaker coming in from another college to talk about how she was using comics to teach biology and so forth. It was really kind of embarrassing, but we were able to eject the person and restart it. But you don't want to give students the ability to take over the screen and keep control of it unless you eject them. So
Okay.
I encourage people just to enable it for themselves and for their students, because students have found it to be a really useful tool when they're meeting in small groups, or if you're holding office hours. It's a good way when students have questions about something, just for them to share the screen, and then you can draw things on the screen if it's helpful in explaining things to them.
And by enable, that is something that you do through like your
The meeting
Zoom settings,
settings.
the meeting settings.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the meeting session settings, you can set up whatever the parameters are for that. Some of them are under the advanced settings. So make sure you click on that to see all the options. But actually, students have found it to be a lot of fun, and it adds a lot of interactivity. Any other questions? Okay, this one ended on time, kind of, which is a nice relief. Partly because I rushed through so many things. The last time I tried doing this, I was connecting my iPad and all that, but the instructions are really clear in the links that I provided. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to meet with you and help you work it out. Just let me know and we can set up a Zoom session. Okay, well, thank you. I'll end the setting and get the video rendering, and I'll be back.